Okay, today's day, Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Meeting start time is 5:31 on the dot. So the call to order, that is the call to order, 5:31. Okay, and welcome everyone. Okay, so now is the roll call, and I'm going to go ahead and conduct, and as Kathleen mentioned, when I call your name, please just state that you're present. Our chair, Patrick Hollanders, is absent today. Susan Potts, here. Andrea Katonic, here. Janice Young. Eric Gibson. And Esther Koski, myself present. Jamie Young. And I believe they're going to be a little bit late.
If they make it, yeah.
If they make it, okay. John Boner.
Yep.
Richard Laban.
Present.
Ian Lawrence.
Present.
Torino. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I invite any members of the public for public comments, and that may include our Zoom participants, if anyone would like to speak.
We have no Zoom participants.
Okay, next are our discussion items. I'll go ahead and read the title. Okay, this is the list of properties within the Antique Streetlight District. And at this time, I invite our city clerk, Kathleen Sussman, to give the report.
Thank you very much. At the September 27th meeting, the panel requested that we distribute a copy of the list of all the properties located within the Antique Streetlight District. And per that request, we have prepared the staff report and provided that documentation. I do want to point out that the mailing addresses on the list have been redacted in order to comply with various privacy laws, which are outlined in the staff report. If you have any other questions, I'm available to answer any of your.
I do have a question. I noticed on here there's several trusts that own properties. How does the voting work for that? They also vote as an entity?
I think they would get the one vote for the one property.
And like the United Methodist Church votes, every single entity listed here votes?
That's correct. If they're listed as the property owner, then they would have one vote for that
One vote.
respective property.
And then I understand why you redacted the mailing addresses and whatnot, but if we want to send information to them, there's not a way to do that?
The city would do it.
Yes,
You would do it for us, okay.
and we would actually recommend if you wanted to do a mailing to let us do it. That way we can charge it through the project account.
But we would be able to do a mailing prior to the voting?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
And that'll actually be the subject of one of the conversations in a few minutes about public outreach.
Okay, are there any public comment or any Zoom participants?
I'd like to ask one question. I noticed that the map of the district and the mailing list don't match up. And then neither of those match up with the project map description. So is this the final list of the properties that are in the district? Because it includes properties that are outside of the district. And then there's properties that are in the district that are not on the mailing list. So just wondering when the final list of affected owners would be available.
Answer that one. The list was created, there's a couple exhibits that you're looking at, and but this is created generally on the plans that we have. The actual properties that will be assessed will be defined by the financial consultant,
Well, that's Wilden.
Wildan.
Okay.
Once they complete their assessment, that's when funds will be.
So this is just sort of a broad overview. It's not the final list.
That's correct.
Exactly, there could be some houses that are not gonna be included in the assessment.
And there'll be some that are.
That might potentially,
And I'm sorry, that's potentially going to be available in November.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any others?
No request from any Zoom participants.
Okay. And at this time, I invite the panel for any discussions.
From my first meeting, we asked for the person that drew these plans, JMD, if they would revise these plans to be done through the blacktop. Was that done? Or is this just a generic overlay and he's not in the planners, he is in the street
We're,
for the underground?
That's the next
we're gonna-
item.
yeah, we've addressed that. We'll
Oh,
have
you're
that.
interested?
Yeah.
That will be in the next item.
Yeah.
You'll get an update right after this item.
Okay, then I'll be quiet.
Okay.
It's a good question. We will
It's
talk
It's a
about
great
that.
question.
It's too soon.
Yeah, yes.
Number 2, report on construction plan bid process and associated timeline. And at this time, I invite Public Works Director. Allison Sweet.
All right, thank you. And this will answer your question too. So go ahead and, so this will be a report on our bid process and then also on the timeline moving forward. So we did give you the plans did go out to bid. And so these are the set of plans that went out to bid last week. And then the bid opening is on October 25th. So go ahead, next slide, please. And so the bid opening will be on the 25th at 10 a.m. To address the concerns about where the trenching will occur, we have added an alternate bid items. And so in that, we actually, in the report, I talk about the bid items like number 3A, which is, we're addressing two things in this alternate bid. One is about the refurbishing versus presenting new lights themselves. So we're giving that option to get prices for the refurbishment also. And then the bid item like 4A, 5A is trenching in the street. So they will give us a price. It does not show it on the plans itself, but it's reflected on their bid price that they'll give us. And then also bid item 6A and 7A are also putting it in the street. Otherwise, their option is to go through the parkway or under the sidewalk.
We were just worried about all the trees.
Right, and that,
Contractor will have means and methods to protect the trees. So,
right. Part of what we put the numbers out there, we give them in the specifications what they, we don't tell them how to do their job. We give them options of, here's what we want. And so we will look to see what their prices are for that and then also have discussions about how they will accomplish it. So. Let's see. Oh yeah, so this is what I just described. Sorry, there's what we call on the left is the base bid and then on the right is the alternate bid. So we will get prices for both of the options. So we will have a line by line comparison of those. And we can, okay, go next. Actually, I'm gonna need to go down about 4 or 5 slides because they somehow ended up in not in the right order. Keep going. It's
Can
till
we
you,
ask you questions now or should we wait till you're done?
you can ask questions now.
What did the staff think of our proposal back of using the existing lights?
Well, part of what we've included that as one of the alternate bid items is if you look down on bid item 23, and it's to refurbish the refurbish the lights.
I mean, but what was throughout the room, was it yes, everybody said, or no, we all want the new?
No, I think we listened to you and we also found a contractor. I think we found him in one way direction. You saw him somewhere else about someone that refurbishes lights. And so there is some concern about what we have existing. Can it actually be refurbished? And he did not have time to go look at that. So part of us refurbishing them will be once they actually get into it and we have to make some decisions about we thought we could refurbish this, but guess what? We can't. So there's still gonna be some decision
We
making.
couldn't build those today, we would be broke if you had to make those today out of solid brass. Never.
Yeah.
They
We-
would be-
Yeah,
We wouldn't build them like that today.
No, they wouldn't. They'd be cast iron, which is what they want to give us, but that's why I just was curious of what the staff thought when we said, I didn't think we were throwing a curveball that we all decided that we kind of wanted the original lights.
no, I think it was definitely a legitimate request and, you know, we're looking at that. Our concern is just how many will we actually be able to refurbish and how many will we have to replace? And that we won't really fully know till we start opening
Open
them
them
up.
up.
Yeah, and someone told me we have 27 of them at City Yard.
Yeah,
27,
28, I think, yeah.
21?
20 some, I didn't get.
I think it's 28, yeah.
So we do have some.
We have some, but those are not in as good
Oh,
shape.
they're
as
probably
others.
hit by a car or.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
right.
why
There's some
they're-
split down the
Do
middle.
we have a maximum number, is it between 25 and 38, or we don't know? I mean,
Talking about in city
as
yard.
far as refurbishing wise, how many for maximum? Would that be available?
We
We're
don't
gonna
know.
try to refurbish all the lights, but like until we start taking them apart and seeing what's in the inside individually, we won't have an exact number.
Potentially could be the entire group.
Potentially could be
Who was the
zero.
company?
Oh, yes.
Who was the company you found that refurbishes lights? Are they local or are they?
They're from,
LA
they're from
or-
Simi Valley, so they're
Somebody in the
pretty
valley?
local.
Simi.
Simi Valley,
See
Oh,
me.
CD Valley.
they've done work around the area. They're familiar with historic streetlights. That's what they like doing.
Because I think they have to rebuild, it's just the top of it. They can put a ground rod in
Yeah, he'll
in the
identify
access
that.
panel before they set. Thank you. I was just curious.
Alexis, you just mentioned it, or maybe happened in the last meeting where I unfortunately couldn't come because the date changed, but so that's one of the questions I had is how many are still around? So 28 are still around. Over the years,
No, what do you mean are still around?
are of the broken posts that have been removed are in city yard? Because one of the challenges I see is, you know, when we're asking people for this much money is there's this feeling in the community that lights have disappeared over the years. Nobody knows where they go. There's all these rumors about, you know, being sold to Disneyland or given to city employees and stuff, which true or not, we have to have a counter narrative. We have to set the record straight. We can't just say it's not true, leave it at that. So 28 are in the city yard currently, in some other condition, probably not very good. And does that account for all the ones that are missing, or are there other ones that are somehow AWOL?
I mean, I haven't gone through all of them. The plans have 113, and that those 113 include some that are missing from the base.
Mhm. I'll try to catch up with you on some of the questions I had before the meeting got answered last time.
They're supposed to be answered this time.
We'll
No
see.
more
Oh, for-
questions answered the last.
Oh, they weren't. Okay,
Yeah.
well then I look forward to that.
All right. So the next thing I was going to go through is the actual anticipated timeline for the bidding and then also the balloting process. So we will have the bids are open on the 25th. And then at that time, once we get the bids in, we'll have the actual price and then we'll work with Wildan. It will take them several days to determine what the assessment should be. And they're going to work with our finance department on, I would presume, some various options about, what's the word I messed up? Amateur, looking at some of how we can address the different costs that we talked about last time. And then using the actual construction costs. In that, we will also have the alternates, as you described, we would have the refurbishing option and then also the trenching in the street versus either the parkway or under the sidewalk.
Will the bid be separate for the underground compared to the new light and the refurbish? Refurbish and new light would be two.
They're
different
separate bids,
And then
yes.
the underground, we're not gonna worry about, because that's,
No, those will all be bid also.
they'll just be in a line item or something.
They're all
They're all
line
line
items.
items,
It's
okay.
all, everything is a line item throughout the whole, nothing is lump sum that I know of on here. So it's all line items for everything. And then, so the big, I'll go back, then on the January 10th will be the big meeting where you will be giving your recommendation, based on the, now we'll know what the assessment is, and then there'll be some outreach in that time to present to council what your recommendation is as a panel. And then if council approves the resolution, they will, in March, they will need to do a intent to set a public date for the hearing to allow for the balloting of the district itself. And the city would mail out ballots, and that would be by March 24th. That would be the date. And then there's the 45 days to the public hearing. And so that public hearing would be when the public can come in and give their protest vote or their vote on whether they want the antique streetlights or not.
The timeline, we just worked this perfectly. Like the last time you guys did this was when the 2008 economy took the crap. Now we're gonna send letters out and ask for money when gas is $8 a gallon and we need money for streetlights. Good luck.
And that's why we're having this panel. That's exactly, I mean, your role is to give the recommendation to the city council, and that can be part of your discussion with them. All right, okay, next slide. So then this is then the construction timeline that would potentially happen. And the first one would be without rebidding the contract, meaning this bid that we receive on October 28th, the contractor will honor it and there's no issues. We've actually did extend a time that we can award it. And so right following that public hearing, it would take a month to actually award the construction contract, because on that public hearing, boom, we would go to the next council meeting. It takes us basically a month to get something onto the council agenda. And then the construction would start a month later and take July, August, 4 months to construct. Now, the other option is if we have to go out and rebid it. Again, the construction world right now, they may not want to honor that bid. And so if we rebid it, then following that May 9th meeting, we would have a bid opening literally a month later, again, whatever outcome of that meeting. And then it would take 3 months to award the contract, and then the construction would be from October to
How
January.
many companies usually go after that bid? Does Edison go after that bid? I mean, our first meeting, somebody said Edison,
Edison isn't a contractor.
they won't be doing the underground. They'll only be pulling the wires.
No, they won't.
They won't do that
They won't
either.
do any of it.
Well, they won't.
No,
No.
Didn't somebody
We,
bring
you
it
know,
up
we,
at the
we were
first meeting?
told that an option in general, although usually they'll just give like this industrial looking lights, is that you can ask Edison to come in, they'll do a thing, give you an assessment.
That would be for the regular streetlights. I know this,
Yeah, well, one of the options we asked for help with is perhaps like we use the state grant to refurbish the lights that can't be refurbished and replace the ones that can. And Edison does the electrical, basically.
they won't do that.
Yeah.
We'd still have to pay Edison for the work.
Okay.
So Edison, as the public utility, their obligation basically is to provide us the electricity,
Uh-huh.
but all the wires, all the connections to the existing network, we would have to contribute.
Okay. That's additional data.
all right. That was all I had for the timeline and the construction. Any questions?
Any public comments or? What you want to speak?
Nope, no requests.
I have a timeline question. So, I mean, we have a timeline and we're presenting what we think the city council should do. But if we're talking about like, this is not a good time to ask people to approve this, is there an opportunity to modify this timeline?
Money's not run out, is it?
Yeah.
The grant?
If you don't get anyone to say yes, how?
I'll answer the grant question first. So there is no timeline for the grant money. We've gone through the administrative process with Caltrans to accept the money. We don't have a drop dead deadline by which we have to spend the money,
Okay.
but it is specifically for this purpose. So we do have to use it for that purpose. And we still have some reporting obligations with Caltrans. Is it possible to delay, given the potential economic situation at that particular time? Yes, it is possible. the numbers will change because the likelihood is that the cost related to these projects will change. It could go up, it could go down. We just don't know. And so the construction bid is basically our baseline to be able to determine the assessment ultimately and what would be assessed to that particular property owner. So the delay is potentially an option for the ad hoc if you want to recommend that to the city council.
Well, are there any options for redoing the lights if the assessment doesn't pass, as it has not the last 2 times that it's happened? That's the other thing we were discussing at the first meeting was, are there ways to raise funds so that the assessment is not including all of that construction cost, or apply for historical grants and other things?
Grants are an option. This is a bit of a niche project. So there aren't a lot of grants specifically set aside for this sort of thing. So we'd have to get a little creative. So that's kind of one response. Timelines for grants are usually pretty extended too. So I can't guarantee that a grant will become available or that we would qualify for it or that we would have it by a certain defined timeline.
Our first meeting, we asked also about was there any grant money available if we decided to do this into a solar charging system to charge and to power these lights? Was there any grant money available for that?
We'd have to look for something like that
We
specifically.
asked that on the first meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
second question is, we asked in the first meeting also if staff would tell us, can we piecemeal this? Can we take what we have and do, I was looking for my numbers, I think we could do, how many lights did I say, 9? We could do almost everything but one street with the funds we have. Could we do that and then go after money for the phase 2?
Is it possible to phase? Yes.
Is that something that we're gonna have to ask council for?
It's not as simple and straightforward as that, however, because the assessment district is based on the project that we undertake. And so even if the construction capital costs are accounted for, we would still have to set up an assessment district for the ongoing maintenance, replacement and operations of those streetlights. If we were to add future projects and future component, or if we were to add future areas to that assessment district, we would have to basically assess that district from zero at that point.
Not add new areas. The existing areas we have, like if we did like, let's just say we did three streets and we couldn't do Wabash. Could we come back and fund that and do that later?
Yes, but we
I'm
can't.
not saying let's do Foothill Boulevard all the ways to Grant.
No. What we ultimately build, there will have to be an assessment district for it.
So we
So
basically
if-
have to do it in a full package.
That's correct.
And-
And if you do, let's say you do only 2 of the 4 streets, I'm just hypothetically speaking, the assessment district is only for 2 streets, not all 4. So you can't have that full proposed assessment district and only construct a portion of the project. There has to be inherent benefit to that property for that assessment to be made.
Right. So the people that we didn't do their street wouldn't pay an assessment,
That's correct.
but could we? I hate to keep asking the same question, I just want to make sure I'm right. Do you get what I mean? We can, because we kind of did the math last time on the first meeting, we did the math, and we counted how many streetlights there were, and we came up with, if at that time was with new lights, we counted it out, and we had everything but almost, I think we only had left over was your mom's street, I think, was on Wabash. We left out the streetlight 6 on Wabash, but we had enough of money to go from Sierra Madre to Bennett, down Bennett. We had enough to do Vista Bonita, and I even threw in your street,
Thank you, I appreciate it,
Wabash.
Sal.
The only thing we didn't have enough of money for
Just not ours.
was above Wabash. So I'll ask the question again, you can repeat it to me. I'm not that smart, but could we come back and do Wabash 6 lights at a later date if we, and raise funds for that?
You can scale,
If we deleted that from the project, we could come back to that and say,
we can certainly create a project within the scope of the budget that we have.
because I was really.
Just the assessment district will be proportional to the project.
Yeah, as you complete each street, we're gonna do this in phases. The assessment district is in line with that completed street.
That's correct, but each additional segment will have to be in a different
Separate
assessment.
Right, you
That's
can't
correct.
assess
So
the
super
streets.
complicated.
Yes,
Yeah, it's by phases. You can do construction by phases, but you can't do assessment, to create the assessment district without those
right.
individual streets.
That is correct.
Because I was looking like long-term, thinking, you know, we did this, we got this done and funded, that we can come back later as another committee and go after more streets. And do
Do it.
more. into the
Let's take over the world.
Then we wouldn't have the light.
This lights everywhere.
That was just my home run swing.
So also, just to let you know, I was gonna, on the next subject, we'll be talking about the frequently asked questions. And so these, I've just circled a couple of the questions you asked originally, and we've got some answers on here too. So I'll tell you, it was number 3 under financial. Can the project be completed in phases to showcase what a completed project looks like? Yes, the project may be phased. However, there are 2 challenges. First, the lighting district needs to be established prior to the work taking place. If the project is phased, individual assessment districts will be required, which may be too expensive. Each district will cost approximately $25,000 to $35,000 to set up. Second, each phase would need to be bid individually, which, given the recent increases in the CPI, would likely increase the overall cost of the project.
Instead of bidding it all in one shot, the piecemeal would cost us more.
Yep, potentially.
How much more?
We don't.
We don't
don't
know
know.
until somebody
don't know.
actually does the bid. I mean,
Yeah,
and this is so specialized that it's, you know, it's not like we're building sidewalks or something. It's,
Are we the only city in LA County that's ever asked to reuse old, like
No, they're
Pasadena
doing
hasn't
it
done
in the
this?
City of Los Angeles right
How
now.
about Pasadena, Old Town Pass? Have they done?
they have also refurbished some lights.
They do.
Yeah.
also. So we're not the only.
They have a
No.
mixture of refurbished and new because some of them could not be.
I can't remember driving around in San Marino, if they have antique lighting. I would imagine they would.
so here I have one, can answer one more of your questions. You said, is there funding for solar projects? Specifically, did the city consider feasibility of solar light fixtures? What about a solar project on the city-owned property, i.e. Vista Bonita area parking lot? And the answer is currently the city does not have any plans for solar project that would benefit the streetlights. As noted above, the solar project would need to be a general benefit that is offset to general costs such as electricity for city hall, police station, library, and would not be eligible to offset the cost of possible antique streetlight district. So anyway, those are the 2 I grabbed that you
Because
just
I know
asked.
in the funding, the city is asking for money to maintain these lights for Edison. That's why we asked about the Edison project. At my kid's school, the whole parking lot is solar panel now. The whole Glendora High School, the whole parking lot. That's not benefiting, that they're sucking that slope. They're using it for the school to run the air conditioners and stuff. So I was just thinking, you know, we came up with that, what was that old school that used to be, my kids went to Grant Baby School there.
Across from St. Clair.
No, at that little park.
Wyndham.
Wyndham. Yeah. Great school.
It's been a while since the solar of the schools, but I know that even as the city,
School is a general benefit.
yeah, it was a different.
I just wanted to back up a little bit.
I think it also-
When you were talking about the contractor that you're aware of that's in Simi Valley, there's a possibility to refurbish the existing streetlights. And then you just mentioned that they did some refurbishing in Pasadena. Could we find out who that contractor is and then get a bid from that guy too? Because if we just go with the one, we don't know if that's a great bid. or-
Well, here's a perfect example. So right now it is out, what they call it's out for public bid. Anybody you know, any contractor you know, call them up if you want to refer them to me or to Alexis. Say, please bid on our projects. We have it out there right now. It's they talk about the plan holders list. So people should know about it, but feel free. I do that. I'll call it. We are in communication with the restoration guy. He would be a subcontractor. And we're like, please bid on this project. So I was not aware of anything in Pasadena. I mean, we do look at our agencies nearby to see if we can find anything. And we haven't come up with any recently.
When that goes out to bid,
It is out to bid. It is out to bid.
now.
Yes.
There's a ton of people trying to get that contract.
Okay, great.
So, and I'll
It's not
tell you
like
though,
it's a
I will,
I'm not sure this one has a ton,
Well,
because it's a special.
It's made available to a lot of people.
yes, yeah.
It closes on Tuesday, so if you do know somebody that can do this work, I recommend letting them know now. They can submit their
I
bid
wouldn't
price.
want to do it for all two.
Do we know how many bid holders are?
I mean, it takes work to put a bid together, so.
it's, these guys are, what they do, what that underground does,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
And is there a link we can readily share?
Yes,
Yeah.
go onto our website. And at the top of the page, it says bid or RFP, I think.
Yes.
I don't know if that's the right exact.
Yeah, it says bid /
Very top,
RFPs.
very top.
It's little.
It's like, almost like beige blue is like a very
Oh.
top of this,
Bid RFP.
top right. and then-
Okay.
And then we use a company called Quest
There's like a link
CDN.
there that says view Quest CDN or something. And then there should be a list of all our projects that are currently up to bid.
Um,
Off the bat, I think that's your making.
Yeah.
I know.
I
Yeah.
don't think you're qualified.
They do have to have a bid bond, so that usually, when you get the bids, then they're honoring them, so.
Okay. One thing that the Historical Society keeps bringing up is the desire to recommend that the, whatever lights do survive this process, especially the old ones, get designated historic, because an ongoing problem has been that these lights have been mistreated for decades, because no one has taken them seriously, at least. So that's something I'd like to put on the table. I don't know what the process for that would be, but I think that should be an accompanying part of our recommendation to the council that, once, God willing, these are all fixed up and beautiful and shining again, that they have some kind of designation. So 50, 60, 70 years from now, people aren't dealing with these things falling over again and neglected. I think that would be very nice.
I second that.
How do you see that happening? Just, do you mean like sign? It's just in the historical?
I mean, a sign would be great, but
Little
but it needs to be designated somewhere, because I mean, the reason we got to this place is because at least, I don't know what happened in the 60s, but at least from the 70s until the early 2000s, the city was collecting some kind of money, although I don't know if that's accounted for here. That was one of my many questions. But public perception, right or wrong, is that they were paying for the maintenance of these, but the city didn't maintain them and they started falling apart. And that's how we got where we are.
They rotted out. The city can't control it. The underground utilities rotted out.
Well, that too, but they also didn't take care of the posts themselves. Yeah.
And one of the things we also have, I'll bring it up here, is, and your frequently asked questions, and on the website, we have a lot of all the historical data for 20 years. And then, I mean, these frequently.
One of the
asked
staff reports you prepared, I think, provided a comprehensive look at the history of it. too.
Yes, that was the last
That was
meeting.
at the last.
Okay. Okay.
We can talk offline.
Yeah, we-
Please.
But historic designation is a separate process from this, so that would come after all of this.
Oh, and number 7 in this,
We can certainly make it as part, you can certainly make it as part of the recommendation. I just want to let you know it's,
Yeah,
a
no, I
different
understand it's a
process,
separate.
You're on.
okay, all right, well, this next one has 3 items, and the first one will be the frequently asked questions, which are the list of questions that you had asked at the first meeting. And I'll just use an example here. Number 7, you just asked, are there any funds set aside from the city's historical district? And also the city's historic district is generally defined as the area covering a residential neighborhood in the vicinity of the Glendora Village, shown in attachment 3. And that actually, if you're online, it shows the link to what that district looks like. The city zoning regulations regarding historic landmarks and resources are outlined in the municipal code, section 21.030.050, and the city's general plan also includes a historic preservation element that was adopted in 1999. As the city's role in this area is largely preventative preservation of buildings, the city does not set aside special funding for public improvements. So anyway, but yes, you can definitely bring up that. So in your packet, you do have all the frequently asked questions, and again, it is on the website too. So we captured, this is what we're calling a living document. And so if you have any additional questions tonight, we can research those and answer those questions.
So since this is living on number 6, though now the current budget estimate's closer to 2.3 million, because before it was 2.7, so I'm happy it's gone down by 400,000, but. Okay, that's good.
We've tightened up the construction.
Yeah,
package,
yeah,
so-
okay, so the first bid is always what they call for planning stages. We're at 60% plans, and then at the 100% plans, they're able to dial in some more knowns. And I think one of the Edison power sources got moved, and so there was less conduit and things like that, so.
And actually jumping back to the bidding process, one of the things that bothered me about the original plans is that it seemed like the engineer didn't really notice that the utilities and stuff are all not located in the street in this area. And I'm worried that people bidding on it, I don't know, I mean, hopefully they go out and pay attention, but will they be aware that, they're not worried about sewer lines in the middle of Wabash Avenue? They're not worried about electrical. They're not worried about any of these things. Is that going to be clear, I hope?
The utilities are marked out on the plans. There are utilities in the streets. They vary per street, but
Yeah.
all known utilities are marked out on the plans. They will do their USA Dig Alert before actually digging anything, so they're aware of any conflicts.
And also water and sewer is way deeper than they'll be going.
That's true too.
This is the narrowest, deepest, less deep trench that we'll be doing.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know, does anybody know approximately how deep the trenches would
I
be?
think it's 19 inches unless I'm wrong.
They're 30 inches
30
from the surface.
Oh, 30?
From the surface.
Just a point of clarification for these
67.
questions, because I appreciate the answers to them, and I don't know if we'll be going through them all, but we were asking these questions, just our questions. I wouldn't necessarily categorize them as frequently asked questions, and I actually think that some of these questions are not what we want to have out on the public page when we're sending out information. And like it was quite like the solar, it was just questions that we were asking
Mhm.
at
We were
that
actually
first
looking for more money.
meeting. Yes, and trying to figure out, so I understand it's a living document, so we may want to look at this, because I think some of these questions are not meant for how to educate the public on when we're trying to get them to agree to the assessment.
Well, and they are on the website right now, but I would be happy to adjust it if you guys want to.
And
Make
before we
changes to
send that
these.
document out,
It
Is
is
there
on the
already on
website.
there?
It's on the website. It's on the website.
no, the part that we're gonna use for the mailing list, whatever we're gonna mail, can we have, does the city have any of the previous letters that were written to the public? Like in 2008, or is that such a item that would be
I haven't
saved?
seen,
For
We could look
outreach,
for
for the outreach or for the actual
Well,
assessment?
no, but I'm thinking how they ask. I would like to
Both.
see that.
Yes, the
Prior
outreach
to the
and
way
the vote.
we ask.
Yes.
We've-
All I remember was just a letter
Yeah.
stating that there was going to be a city council meeting and bring your questions, everyone's welcome.
Yeah. well,
I
that
just
doesn't always-
remember.
Yeah,
one page coming.
I'm not sure that we would have some of that material, in part because as city staff, we're not allowed to advocate. We could only provide information and education on these types of things.
I
So
have a-
Who would write that?
So the letter that we originally
We would do
normally
it
send out is more
together. We
legalese.
would do
Yeah.
it. And then-
related to the assessment. But to answer your
So who
question,
would the city would be the one helping us do the verbiage on that mailer that we would do? Somebody that was pretty smart at it.
oh, that's me then.
Yeah.
No, you're not here that day, remember?
it would be us. It would be a combination of us with our
Okay.
communication staff.
The other thing that I thought might be interesting or an idea, and I would not want it to look tacky, but if there was some type of sign that we could put on the actual lights, like, would you like to see these working? Like, go here for, like with a QR code that takes them to the place to get more information.
So let me,
You want to jump in?
why don't I go ahead and I'll show you what we have, and these are great topics that we will cover a little bit, but then you've got some other ideas. What I would suggest on this frequently asked questions, then, if there is any that you specifically do not want
Okay.
out, to let
I have-
us
I haven't
know.
read through them all yet.
And I think just as a point of clarification, these are questions that were bound to be asked by people. So
Some
what,
of them,
so
yes.
they won't necessarily, like, to get to your point, we might use some of this information to provide a one pager. And in fact, I think there's an example.
Mhm.
We don't have to
Use
everything. We don't have to mail out the FAQ. This could just be on the website in case somebody has very specific questions that have already been contemplated and discussed. So it's kind of an easy way for us to be able to track what's been asked and kind of share that with the greater public.
So what we did here, and we're using the term one pager. So the idea is this is a draft and it is for your comments. And it'll be front side and back side, and it is in your package because I know you can't read the screen. But it goes through and talks about it's like a fact sheet, the project itself, the funding and the balloting. And then talking about the district and what the special benefit means. And then also any of the maintenance district rules. And then in the bottom left-hand corner is a QR code that people will then take them to the website, is my understanding.
Mhm.
And then on the back side, it shows the location of the streetlight district. So this is a draft. We are looking for we just wanted to put something together that would start a talking point as to what you would like to do for this project. And that being said, I will go on just to the next one. We don't have to answer it yet, but then I gave some examples. Go ahead, next slide. These are what we have done for previous projects. This one was for the Measure E project that our previous ad hoc committee for Measure E put together. Next slide.
What was Measure E?
The sales tax measure, which is why you see a lot of graphs and charts about projections.
Because I worked on that Arrow Highway rezoning,
Oh, okay.
and I was just wondering about that.
Oh, no, yeah. And then here are two showing, so this is for the San Dimas Wash Trail. And again, it's a sample of a different project.
We worked on that Arrow Highway project
Yeah.
on the trail.
Oh.
I was wondering why that was different. It looked like
So it's a sample document. If you might say, hey, I'd like to see something like this on ours. And go ahead, next slide. So then also for the public outreach, this particular one on the left was us asking for a budget request for up in Sacramento. And so again, making it simple for people to understand. And so this was the front and back of that one.
did you guys get that crosswalk money, the bicycle lane money? Because there's the cities everywhere I go to, they all have it. It's just-
We've gotten a good chunk of it. The total project cost is about 21 million. I think we're about 10 million that we have in hand.
Are they gonna do any of it?
Yes, we actually have to phase it.
They're gonna phase it?
The next segment
It'd
of
be
it.
nice to have a railroad tie all that in for free.
We've asked.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to, in the city, you're not supposed to, you're supposed to tell them.
I'm curious, just because you mentioned the railroad got mentioned again, the last mile sort of lighting thing like up Glendora Avenue, I suppose some kind of lighting is going in. When might that happen?
The decision relative to the lighting on that project is when that project will come forward. So we're using, I wish it was a more straightforward answer, but it's very governmenty. The sources of the funding that we have are limited to transportation related uses. And so while streetlights are part of the transportation, anything that's determined to be decorative or cosmetic, we would have to pay for separately. And unfortunately, that would fall into the latter category.
And what was that project coming up Glendora Avenue?
The first last mile, it's actually this project here
Oh,
that's
okay.
shown as an example. And I believe that was one of the questions that we answered in the
Yes,
FAQ.
yes, yes, all that, thank you for that.
So in this portion would be to see what we can do for you in terms of putting together this fact sheet. You want, yeah, there you go. So this was our draft one. If you have any comments on it right now, or I'll let you discuss. That's concludes my presentation.
I would just like to see it mentioned that, you know, it's basically our city's founders put these in. Hopefully we're restoring them and not totally replacing them. And also that it's good for property value, something like that. Kind of like, I think that will appeal to people.
It would be nice if we could add something that said, what can you do? Like, if you are a homeowner, vote yes on this. If you're a renter, tell your landlord or owner, whoever. Like, because this is giving information, but it doesn't exactly tell them what to do or what they can't do.
And I saw some language here about how there used to be 210 lights and now there's 113. What can we say about what happened? Or is that also including some of the ones that were in the business district too, the 210?
That difference was discussed the last meeting, essentially, the last meeting packet, I believe we were receiving an email, showed the two maps of the original district that was installed according to the article in 1911 and 1914, and what is remaining now, which is what we're proposing to construct this time.
Yeah, no, but just again, because there's this sort of, I mean, of course, if the bids come in and it's, you know, hasn't outpaced inflation the way it's looking so far, then maybe this will be a lot harder to sell. But there's just all these public perceptions, because I remember the election process last time, and I went to city council meetings last time, and trying to think of, you know, all the urban legends and myths and bad feelings, and, you know, again, there's all these people who believe that there's retired city staff that have these lights in their backyards. They think some of them are at Disneyland. The more we can just say that didn't happen, or they were, even if, you know, I don't know, they were sent to the junkyard, whatever, the better. Just because these things will come up and people will think, oh, I shouldn't pay for this. The city's been, you know, collecting money for decades. It didn't do anything. And then they gave these away as presents. And, you know, there's this bad feeling that I don't think has quite been accurately understood by city staff and city council. They kind of had this perception last time that, oh, people don't even want to pay a dime. They're so cheap, or they're so grouchy, or whatever. Where I think it's this lack of communication has been going back for generations, frankly. That we need to address.
I've been in 4 city staffs that have been retired from the city. I've been in 4 of the backyards. None of them have that light. I bet you none of them want it.
I don't know. I mean, it's silly.
Some of it's hard to dispel some of those urban legends, because I mean, we've heard them too, and we don't have very good records to be able to say that happened or not.
Most of the time, people are complaining because they don't want to pay. So
That's
then if they think that it's going to cost them, they're going to complain.
Yeah, there
So,
will
Can we
always
blame
be.
someone who's dead and just say they?
Hey, it's history. It's history.
Yeah.
I think someone should go to Disneyland and walk the streets and see if we recognize our.
There you
outdoors.
Give it to you.
Well, that, you know, it is a very common design too, at least for the poles.
Yeah, ours are very.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen them in another city. Like, I've been downtown Orange. And
Yeah, some of the
But
acorn
not,
lights are.
not the
new.
same though.
But
you
maybe
would think
we have
back in
at
the
least 3
30s, there
different
wouldn't be
posters.
more than 1 or 2 guys that were making these things.
One thing I just wanted to bring up, because the first set of plans and this set of plans, because they alternate between the different designs we have. I'm actually going on Saturday to go to the Historical Society's archives and try to figure out what is actually the original design. I don't know if that can be kind of re-entered into the process at some point.
Sure.
And anyone who wants to join me at noon at the Historical Society can on Saturday. But I'm gonna try to look up what was there, because there's at least 3 different designs of everything. It's very messy. But at some point, it would be nice if we could maybe try to go back to as original as possible.
Well, we actually did just put an addendum out to put back in kind, whatever globe was, for whatever reason it was missed, but we added that.
Okay. I see that they're plastic, which doesn't sound that nice, but.
But it used to be glass.
Yes.
There'll be clear acrylic or some sort of material. I mean, unless you go in there and really like try to knock them off, you won't really know.
It won't be glass.
No,
Some sort of Lexan.
yeah, like a
plastic.
clear acrylic or something.
Yeah.
But if there are glass ones still remaining, are those gonna get reused or trashed?
I don't think we'll trash anything,
Okay.
you know, as we start really getting in, the contractor getting into each pole,
Mhm.
you know, we'll definitely preserve whatever.
Okay, as explicit as we can be about that, the better. I mean, also, some of that, I mean, I'm surprised some of the stuff hasn't been stolen, but I mean, you can. sell something.
We have 27 at the yard. Who knows if they've been hit by cars, but you see the way people drive,
There's that too.
you know, shit's gonna happen. They're gonna hit those lights somehow. Or, you know, I don't know, but the contractor was back on tractor up, he knocked one over. It just went to the city yard.
Yeah.
You know, no, I don't think somebody was actually out there in the middle of the night stealing.
But I think,
That thing's heavier than probably
I think a
10.
little picture of the 27, even if it's a pile that looks like a mess, might be helpful just to say, here's what still survived. You can, maybe you don't have to answer all the urban legends, but at least say this is what we have still, at least reveal what we have. I think might be helpful.
I think the bid is the most important thing for us to get back to see just the difference of refurbished compared to the new. It may be in our favor, and it could be way out of our, it could double the project. I don't think so, but you're dealing with a city ordinance that costs, you know, one guy to look at it, one guy to work on it, one guy to ship it, one guy to buy. There's a lot of people involved in a city project.
Yeah. If we don't get enough bids or, you know,
We will,
oh, we will, okay,
Sure.
then hopefully.
city will, right? Yeah.
But is there a way
I-
to like repeat the
I-
process if it's not satisfactory somehow?
We hope.
We hope, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a minimum number of bids that you'll decide?
One.
I mean, is there, I mean, before you,
Oh.
before you said mention deadlines, minimum number of bids that you were hoping you to receive?
The bid,
Close out the.
what we call the bid opening is Tuesday at 10 a.m. So we don't open anything, we don't know what it costs from anybody up until 10 a.m. Just sealed bids. At that time, whoever hasn't submitted a bid, it's over for them. We open up whatever we receive.
Who makes the decision on what bid to use?
Well, we haven't,
Lowest, I mean,
Well, you-
typically it's lowest bidder for cities.
Yeah, lowest, most
Lowest bidder
responsive.
is not always the best bidder,
well, we have,
but
It's a
you know
public
who you
contract.
guys use. You
Yeah.
guys use.
well, there's a public, we have to do the lowest responsive bidder. Part of our due diligence is we look up their license, we look up, what are some other,
Previous projects.
Some references.
we ask for references that they've done similar projects, and we can reject all the bids, so, you
I mean,
know.
at this point, you anticipate there'll be more than one bidder?
Um,
I mean, because if we just receive just one bid on the table, can we extend it then?
Not after, oh, go ahead.
Technically, well, no, once we receive bids, it's done. The bids have been opened. So we have to either award or reject. If we want to extend it beforehand, we could, but we are on a deadline that would kind of delay.
No, my concern is that we have one or two bids, one's extremely inexperienced and one isn't, and one experience is very costly in comparison to the one that isn't, so. I mean, it's always better to have at least.
So off their bid, it's pretty much documented what they have to do. They have to follow A through Z.
Yeah.
They can't say, oh, we're gonna do A, or we're gonna do C, D, or E.
It's a little scary that there's like some variables in here, like if it's being refurbished or replaced, this,
Right
that.
now, currently have only one bidder, one?
We don't know yet.
Oh, you don't know.
Bid in
No.
progress.
Oh, you don't think so?
That one example is, we've only encountered one contractor that specializes in refurbishing these types of lights.
Most of the underground works can be by one contract. I think the streetlights will be through a separate contract. Refurbished.
It's
So
possible.
underground, the underground will do, they'll
What-
do that.
They
They'll
could
set
have
all
sub-
the pedestals.
There's a prime contract, there'll be a prime contractor, and then there'll be subcontractors.
yeah.
And most likely, this gentleman that does the refurbishing would be
A
a
sub-
subcontractor to the other contractor.
I assume.
And he could handle this many lights.
If he bids on it, he has a contract, yes.
They have to put in, so say their bid is $1 million. They have to put in what they call a bid bond, which is, I forget if it's 1%, but
Yeah, it's like 5%.
5%. So they actually, what is it? 10%?
10%.
Okay, so 10%. So they put in, they actually have to come up with that as their
Surety.
bid bond, yeah, a surety that they can do this work and that they will do it for this price. And then what we do, we have to do our due diligence, and we call, just like references a job, we call all of these previous projects that they did. We check on their state license. More than once, I've actually called the contractor. You can sit down and say, okay, what are you proposing doing here? So there's some due diligence to determine whether this person's capable of doing the project or not.
Will
And if
be
we-
Will we be in the loop of before you make that decision? Or it has nothing to do with us?
Well, I think it
If
will,
there's multiple
council,
bids.
yeah, council is the ultimate one who eventually awards it.
Right.
So we will, what our job is to recommend. So we
Prepare it
recommend.
for the council.
Right.
But would we be able to see it prior to it going to council, in case if any of us wanted to go in front of the council prior to them approving or disapproving that bid?
Well, there'll be,
You would see it when we publish the staff report.
I mean, I'm probably a little bit, I've done this before.
Yes.
So I kind of know.
Yes.
So that's the only thing I was thinking.
Well,
We
this will show
You
up.
will not be part of the decision-making process
No.
to select the.
But we
the
could
contractor.
verbally, if we,
Could attend the council. You could attend.
we,
Yeah.
I mean, I know I can go in front of it as a
Yeah.
separate, but I mean, I want my committee to be involved with this.
Yeah.
Just asking. We'd like to be if we could.
So our first, once the bids are open and we go through our thing, for the next meeting, we will be talking with Wildan and they will be basing it on whatever price that was received. So at some point, they will be public information. You know, you'll have the numbers and then we work with Wildan for the actual assessment.
Any other comments from the public or Zoom participants? So I think we're at the next meeting at this time. So update on future meetings and tentative discussion items.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is one slide here. So for the next meeting, we will have the construction and the assessment cost. That'll be Wildan. We'll give a presentation on that. And then, so that's actually the first two items. And then also we will ask you for your recommendations on what you want in your public outreach plan. So from tonight, the way I understand it, we've got some additional comments on this fact sheet that we're proposing to draft up for you. And then also, any assistance that you want from us in order to help with the public outreach. You had mentioned mailers. Also, if you wanted to have any kind of public meeting that we could assist with that. And was there any other ideas? What's that? Oh, and then like the holiday stroll, if you wanted to have a booth or something out.
We used to do booths when I was helping with doing the Home Depot project. I told everybody everything they ever wanted to hear. We were gonna get In-N-Out Burger. We were gonna get the claim jumper. We didn't get the claim jumper. We got to the In-N-Out Burger. I worked hard. We worked hard, not I. There's a lot of us that worked on that Home Depot project. That was a huge project. We needed, the city needed it. They needed it. My grandmother said, "You're gonna ruin Lone Hill." I go, "Grandma, we need the 2 cops. We got 2 cops out of the deal and we need the tax money."
I like the strawberries.
You know, I mentioned at the last meeting that maybe we talk with some of our neighbors just to get a feel. And I did in a very casual manner. And they just don't have a clue about what we're trying to do. But bottom line, what I was feeling from everyone is I mentioned the regular streetlights are probably somewhere around $40 to $50 a year assessment. And what I was getting was, well, if we can pay that, then yeah, I'm all for it. So I didn't go, I just brought up what was.
I would add, and as far as this fact sheet goes up to the individuals, to the property owners, it's good to mention what the annual assessment is, break it down smaller figures, you know, what's it gonna cost me per month, per year? And as far as these, I know you mentioned FAQs, and I would agree, we need to review some of these, and they're really long and lengthy and detailed and confusing. If we're gonna add them to this type of fact sheet.
So
The question, we need to streamline these questions.
Oh, right.
Maybe just a handful.
So right,
Because
right
they're very
now-
informative for us,
right.
but not for the public, not for the owner. They'll be too confusing.
And I think that's what we need to know from you.
Yeah.
What do you want to be able to hand out to the public? And that was the idea of this fact sheet. And then, the QR code, because there is a lot of information, as you well know, that would direct them to our website with all of the other information.
And with this fact sheet, we can change, we could take off, if you don't like the balloting section, we could pull that off, we could add areas. This was kind of just to give you information and get your thoughts on what you would like to see and what might be helpful to either mail out or to have a handout as you talk to your neighbors. So this is not locked down, so please feel free to, and we will not have our feelings hurt if you tell us, hey, we want to take this out, that funding conversation is too complicated. That's what we want from you
Do we
today.
have to mention money on our fact sheet? And is there a way for them to, when they go to the QR code, then they can find out, costs and all that, but to get them excited, do we have to mention money? We want your money. Can we just mention that we're doing this, we're trying to get this project approved and go to the QR code and get them excited and let them read that and then figure out, oh, this is gonna cost me. But just to,
I mean, the one pager is exactly intended for what you just described. It's to get you excited about a project, provide a little bit of more of the information, but if you want detailed information, go.
That's
And
why,
Go
I
off
tell
to
you,
it.
and that's why, so we could take,
I
So
like
one
the
of-
idea of displaying something, and I think someone else mentioned it here, that we have, take a look at the proposed street lamp, it looks like this on the corner of Monroe Avenue and Bennett or something. So maybe we can take a look at it. That
well,
way.
if we do a booth downtown for streetlight or something like that, I'll get somebody from the city to give me approval, pick up one of those streetlights and we'll bring it to the downtown.
And light it up.
Oh, I just have
All ideas are good.
I-
All ideas are good.
Oh, no, city has plugs in the trees.
There you go.
That would be great.
When did you need this?
That's what I need.
It's nice.
If you can get us that information, you can shoot us an email to the email that Kathleen set up with your specific feedback. We've taken notes on what you've mentioned already, so we'll start making some changes to it. But if you can get it to us probably within the next week, that would be very helpful. That way we can get something finalized and out to all of you to take a look at.
Of course, until we know that what the bids are coming back, and I'm praying that they're gonna be lower, but you don't really know what you're working with. I do think it's nice to emphasize the grant, and we should make it seem like, oh, there's this big discount, there's all this money towards it, and hopefully.
Get budget shortfall.
Hopefully it won't be that big, yes. One thing I remember from last time, and maybe it's a partially cultural thing, but I remember it was like, you could pay this much all at once, and then you just have a regular assessment. And that made me feel much better than being told I had to pay, forget what it was, like $300 a year for 10 years. That freaked me out. But when they said that paid $3,000, I'm like, okay. And I never think about it again. And then I just make a normal assessment.
Yeah, pay options.
So
We just
That's
had,
a good
we just
idea.
had a huge project in Newport Beach for our alley. And the city was coming after everybody for some money for the underground utilities. And I'll say 85% of the older people, gold tax roll, when they die, their kids will pay that. Most of the younger people will pay it, but the older people are never gonna pay for it.
But we had an
Care
option.
less.
We had an option last time, so I thought it was nice to have an
I
option.
like that idea of having an option as far as
Yeah.
payment plan for some people. It's the same thing you see on e-commerce. You have Klarna and all those payment options, maybe something like to make payments based on the annual assessment. Maybe that's.
And the interest rate, the way it is right now, I'll carry paper.
No, I would. I'd pay it up front, but a lot of people may want that option.
Yeah, but the idea that it's, once you paid off this light at the 3,000 or whatever, that it's only $40 a year or whatever.
I mentioned this in the first meeting and I will repeat myself at every meeting. I've done enough of projects in my life. I would bet money we will not get public help to fund this. I'll say it again.
Not 700,000.
You're not, no, I don't care if it's 100. They're not going, they all assume that's the city's responsibility. Why should I pay it? I don't care if that light's lit out there or not. That's what they're gonna say. That's why I think this committee, we're gonna have to find a way to go fund this. Holiday street walk, lighting, Christmas parade, try to get people, try to get a donation, a donation flyer made. Hey, if you want to help us out, there's a lot of people in Middle that have a lot of money, and maybe they would fund us. Maybe they would throw us some money. You don't know, but I'm telling you, that's the way it's gonna come down.
How would
When
that,
I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say, I am sorry, but it's
No,
not.
I don't think you're
It's-
wrong.
and how would that work? Would, if we said somehow we could collect donations, would that somehow be held in a kitty by the city? Would we need to found a 501c3? Like, how would that even work? Do we need to put it through the historical society? Like. how
That's a
would
great
that work?
question. I'm not sure I have an answer for that one
Okay.
just yet.
Homework.
That is a good question, but I'm gonna, you're right, go through the historical society, would hold it, and then they would write one check to the city.
I'm sure.
Eventually, it would
our
have
towns
to
would
be-
Thrilled about that.
Yeah, it'd have to be rolled
Get to us.
back to the city.
Yeah.
They would be the asset collector.
Yeah.
And would they do that?
I mean, I can advocate for that.
Okay,
It's
throw it on your
possible,
list
but-
Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, but I really think going to the residents to pay the shortfall is.
It didn't work in 2008.
Did you get your neighbors to agree to it?
I actually did some walking around yesterday. And I had one person say no. I visited 10 houses and all the homes were actually quite positive feedback. I had spoken to a few residents that had actually lived there long enough where the lights were on. And so they kind of knew a little bit of history. I had some families that were willing to pay an extra $300 on their yearly tax to put the lights on and to see them come back on. I did have one household that said they would pay maybe up to 100 on their taxes yearly because he was on a fixed income. And then I did have one no, that, you know, I only spoke with the wife, but it was just quick dialogue because I wanted to just see, you know, what their interest was, how much would they be willing to pay if we look at getting the lights back on, and looking at forming a district first, that's kind of our first and foremost plan. And so she said that, you know, it's something that they want. So I didn't get one no, you know, that was what I got, but for the most part, it was all positive feedback. I had some people saying, I'm so glad that you're out here asking me questions. Yes, absolutely, yes, 100%. We are in. So I did get.
I also talked to him. and it was
You must
all
have some
positive.
great neighbors that
Oh.
love it. I'm telling you.
It was all positive, but also across the board, every single one of them did not remember that last letter being 300.
And it was.
They remembered it all 3,500. So every one of them was
That might have
surprised.
been a.
Yeah, that's where you pay all
I
of
think it
that.
was confusing. Every one of them were like,
Also,
well, I
maybe
did
that's
it for
against
that.
the-
Why, you know, so I think the wording is very important. I also liked the idea, I was listening to Zoom as I drove in, about putting some kind of sign or something on the things to bring attention immediately. That would maybe send them, like you said.
And like
use that-
yard signs, like if you could have walked around and given a yard sign to the people who said, yes,
Right.
we're in, that would be helpful.
How about like a sign, save our city lights,
Oh,
with
yes,
the
something
barcode
like
on it,
that.
and let them go to the barcode. Would
Right.
the city make
I
those
think a
for
lot
us?
of people would be.
If we hung them, or the city would hang
You
them?
could call it turn on
Oh,
Glendora. Turn on Glendora.
Yeah.
So, but I think education
I
is
think we
very
won
important
this, I forgot.
because every one of them was very interested in that. Every one of them was interested in the dollar amount. No one really balked at the 300, but I'm sure they would like to pay less. And the other thing that none of them knew is that other people were paying assessments. Not one of them. I spoke to 5 people and I didn't know that either. So that whole argument of,
Yeah.
why should I have to, well, people are paying. We just didn't know because guess what? We have to pay. So I think it's just education, because once I talk to people, everybody wants the lights. That's not a question. It's like, how do we get this information to them? And then I think the other part we're gonna have a problem with is like the rentals for the people who don't live here. Why would they pay extra? This is their investment property. So
Increases property.
And there's a lot of like
and
trust,
that's part of the
like I don't
education.
see a trust or a church or an
A trust
LLC,
is
like
just-
voting yes.
Mine's in there in a
increase
trust.
their cost.
It's just because I tied it up to where my kids can't sell it. I worked my ass off to get that property. They're not getting, they can have the money, but they're not gonna sell it.
I think
That's
a
okay. That's the truth.
house sign is a great idea. That's a little more fun to the ground.
And we'll also help
I'd put a little
navigate
plus
something, but if you guys have
box
wording that you want, please send us the email of what possible. Oh, if you would like us to assist with the yard signs, if you have some wording that you would like to see on it.
Help,
Line it up.
help save our.
Antique.
Help save our, it doesn't have to be a whole bunch of
I
verbiage.
like turn on Lindor.
Oh my.
Turn on. I like the
Is that-
word
we
save.
might have to-
Yeah, there we go. Save, some sort of something
Save
with
our
saving,
lives.
with the
Save our
barcode where they
history
can,
or something.
Yeah.
and then they'll get people in their head, because I mean,
100% right.
I'm re-landscaping the front of my apartment building up here, and every morning,
If it's not
I
in
get
the zone,
so
we don't
many
care.
people walking up and down, they're not covering the street light, but there's so many people walking up and down to
That's
get
what
to the
I think too.
downtown every morning. And you know, they're chatting me up because I'm usually sitting down,
Put a sign
why
on
aren't
the
you
truck.
working? I go, "'Cause I own the place.
Right.
I'm watching. So that'd be great to have those little signs on all those.
And
I don't know about all
everybody
the
at
little
this
signs.
point is used to the, what are these things called?
QR code.
QR codes. So that would save us on money for the papers alone. Like, I don't read these things when they come. I try, but I don't. But these things,
Well, that'd be
that's
sure.
easy.
Yeah, the code's live
Um,
too. I scanned it.
How about if we try and bring a couple samples to the next meeting?
Yes.
And don't get crazy.
Keep
You
it
know,
simple.
Not like the ones where it says no parking, where they're rolled around the sign.
Mhm.
Something a little bit more to hard base with a little, where we can zip tie them and just zip tie them to the streetlights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or just stick them in the grass. Like
We
that's
usually
easy.
make them out of like.
And I think we'll
cheap
look at
styrofoam.
at signage for the streetlights as well as the yard signs.
Yes. that's
Because I'm
what-
assuming the yard
Yeah.
signs could be a little bit bigger.
We need a little slogan.
Yeah.
And then if we do decide to do downtown, would the city give us a booth or do we gotta pay for a booth? Because the city
holiday
sells
sale.
those spots out.
Um,
Or will we just
Why don't
That's
you-
a bit, isn't
find out?
Why don't you
We
let
can
me
find
check
out.
into the
If we were
special
gonna-
permits?
It's like for a street light or a Christmas parade, if we were to set up a booth, would we have to pay for the booth? Which you're gonna pay for, so we're gonna roll it right back to you.
To go along with that, question about just turning on the lights on a particular day to get the neighbors talking about
Oh,
seeing
like
the
they did
lights, because
before?
That was an accident. That was
Yeah,
an
that was an accident. They were not supposed to turn on.
No, I know
Technically,
they
someone
were
could die or
supposed to.
something.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think,
not sure
I
we're
think there's
able
some
to do that.
safety concerns.
I know where it is. I know where to do
It's
it.
all rotted
They
out.
could
Yeah.
line 2 or 3 lights on the city somewhere, Glendora Avenue or something, say, look, on this date, we're gonna light for the next 3 nights or whatever, during the holidays or something. And come see the lights on this street or that street.
maybe just a hint at outreach,
Yeah.
because people are kind of, whoa, what's this? The lights are on.
Everyone
You
was
know,
so
and then
excited.
even
I
if
built
they're
one in
on
front of my
for
apartment building. I
one
wanted to light it for years. I was
My
ready,
neighbor did
I was
too.
ready to
My neighbor
underground conduit.
My
People are
neighbor,
doing
same
it.
thing.
I think people have done that, actually.
Yeah.
Some of them
There's
actually.
one
I hate to have
We
somebody
have
get
some that
electrocuted,
work
take my
because
whole
they've
building.
done
because people-
It's just a-
Yeah.
I'd be willing to do that.
We can-
Or we could
we can-
set something.
We could explore the possibility, but it's gonna be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge.
Because of the safety issues.
Yeah. And I think it would, we wouldn't be able to do just a couple because it's all just like in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a financial question. As far as the assessment, for those that say they can't afford, or whatever reason, if this is all, it's all inclusive of every property within the historic district assessment. So for those who can't, say for example, so this won't kill this project, is there a way to just not assess them?
Then everyone's gonna say, I can't afford it.
You know, I mean.
No, it just goes on their tax roll. When they die, their kids will have to pay it. No, it's the way it works. I'm
I
telling
mean,
you.
an exemption for those that probably, fixed income.
Just I don't think so.
It's
I-
all or nothing.
Since we're on assessments again, unless I'm missing it, I don't think we ever got an accounting of like the 1970s into the early 2000s, that assessment. People still kind of feel like, oh, we paid for everything. Have we had a reckoning of what that was and what that wasn't?
Oh, I know in one of our council reports talked about when the money was returned to everybody.
Yeah, but it didn't say like you were charged this much. It was only for the electricity, not for the maintenance or anything like that. Because I think that's something we need to know.
It's gonna be for us at the street parties to tell people.
Yeah, but we need to know what it is.
How was it returned to the residents? It's just you paid less taxes than the next year?
I don't,
Through the check. Finance sent them the check.
Yeah, you got a check, didn't you say, after you moved in?
I did not.
You got
I don't
someone
know. There's
else's
also a
check?
perception that that check never happened, by the way. So.
I never received such a check.
I don't
I mean, it came from the city of Glendora. Who would have done it?
Yeah.
that
When
was
was the last time any of you have ever seen a check come from the city of Glencore? Raise your
But
hand.
if we could know what was actually assessed, that would be very helpful.
We do know the totals. I don't know that we have it broken down line item by line item, but we do have the figures. And I think it was in one of the staff reports for the last.
Isn't there something on your tax bill that you really, most people don't look at? It's like a little line item. that-
It would be a line item.
I mean, they look at the total dollar, they don't look at where, because I don't even, and I pay a lot of property taxes, I don't look at all those little, because you ain't gonna change it. So you just go to the total and pay it and be done.
How much was the check for, you know?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but we can
You
try to
didn't get it,
figure
so
out.
don't worry.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. If I got a check from Glendora and it was from like $50, I didn't pay attention. If I got one for like 1,200, I think I would have been, what's this for? I don't have any more.
We can double check, but I can't recall off the top of my head.
I got married.
We went to.
Right, the check was in 2004.
They stopped in 2004, and I think it took a while to get this paperwork together. So.
yeah, there was a bit of a
And
delay.
before I forget, can we just look to see if we have any of that literature from 08?
We can look.
Yeah.
Just look, just give it either yes or no. I mean, I don't know what box that would be in or where that would be.
That's the hard part. Our record keeping hasn't been great over the years, so
Is it in the basement of City Hall?
No,
No.
we've gone through all those files. Thank
Yeah.
you. We've just finished. But let me look and I'll see what I can find.
And it was 2008.
You might have the paperwork.
I'm gonna look through
The
the-
check reimbursement, you would have gotten in 2004,
4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Who was that?
He's
that sent that?
requesting
No, I can't-
some of the
Pictures.
literature that was
Send all
mailed
those
out, I
pictures.
think, for the 2008
JS
assessment.
something.
For the vote?
For
Yeah.
JS.
Yes. me.
Who's, is that you? You sent us all those pictures of the
Yeah,
lights?
I didn't know if they went through it.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
know. He didn't even know. I said, he thought it was fraudulent.
No, I'm
Vote
sorry.
for me stuff on his phone.
No, I have gotten to the part, because I was
I was
looking,
gonna vote.
I was really against a replacement lamp, and those are pretty darn good at the park. I don't know who put together the park lamps,
Those
but
are.
they are not original. They're not,
Some of them are identical.
3 of them are identical.
Yeah.
Just the Wabash. The rest of them are a little bit smaller, but they're not so small. Some of the ones I've seen are very small, and there's a noticeable difference. These ones are a little larger, and I was curious where'd they get those from, and who we could maybe get that quote from that person, because they're pretty darn close. And there's also,
I know we've looked up records
8 of
and then we have not been able to find anything on those ones that are in Big Pioneer Park.
no one knows when they were put in there.
But the ones in the downtown are, I mean, they're oldie timey, but they're pretty decent too.
Yeah,
These ones
they're
are pretty
cute. They
enough.
look like Disneyland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like 8 of them in a parking lot behind the transportation center too.
How many, is that how many? So those we did look up, just to let you know, those, when they built the transportation center, those were for the parking lot. Admittedly, we found one plan sheet and there is no information other than says put in.
Sorry.
Oh, so we don't know. who-
Wait,
Allison's
Talking at a time, please.
Okay, so as part of your correspondence, or somebody asked about the transportation, the lights in the parking lot. When was that built?
It was, the plans were signed 94, so yeah.
In 94 was about the time that the transportation center was built. And in that, and you have parking lot lighting, and that's what is in there. and it says to put in lights. It has no indication that they're antique or whatever. Admittedly, it says, see the schedule sheet for better information, and we don't have that sheet.
Because they seem to match the other ones in the grandstand. So my guess, if you looked into when the grandstand was built in the park there, my guess would be that they all came together. Because the ones in the parking lot and the ones in the grandstand look nearly identical. I think they are identical, except for 3 in the grandstand that look exactly like Wabash ones. So I was just curious where we got those replicas, and then can we get those? Because they were pretty close.
Well, I think the one thing to be aware of, because I know when we were even putting these plans together, we're like, please, make them as close as possible. I shouldn't say all, what we can do now is look at all the manufacturers that are out there. And that's what JMD did. And then we also are trying to find the closest thing that we could find. So even if we knew what was put back in 1994, it's not out for sale now. So it's the vendors that are selling stuff now, and then also the person that's restoring.
Yeah, I didn't realize
So I
it was
don't think that
long.
information would help in terms of figuring out what would be close. Because they may not be in business.
Yeah, right. I didn't realize it was that long.
I got one more question since we have time, right? If the rebuild of the old lights doesn't work, do we have a option of what the new ones would look like?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good question.
Do we get to make a decision of what they would look,
You
which
mean
ones
like
we?
a different type of decorative light?
Yeah. Or would we be trying to copy something that was used in Glendora somewhere else? Or is this gonna be a new light? Because I mean, I see a lot of them on the freeway going to old cities that have been redone, and they look like they're old lights, but they're new cast iron, which is way cheaper. Is there
Well, we do on this bid sheet, we have written out a specification, and we could get what they call the cut sheet, or, what shows what the brochure of what the light is.
does that vendor make other lights also?
And we also don't, the contractor can choose which vendor we give them all
specified a
the.
vendor, but they're allowed to submit an or equal, an equivalent, and we have to kind of compare the specs. If it is very equivalent, we can approve it. If it's not at all equivalent, then we can reject it.
I'm just wondering if there's a variation, I know we're all wanting for redo the old, but maybe we should have pictures of the new stuff that we could talk about in case if option A doesn't work. We would already know kind of what, get us some pictures of what the light would look like. And maybe the manufacturer, and maybe they make, we could go on their website and we could see if they make different ones.
Yes, we can do
They
that.
have different pole styles, they have different capital styles, they have different globe styles. We chose the ones that kind of look similar to what's out there.
Okay.
I think the big difference is width. To me, what I saw, because I've seen different lights that people have put up in their properties, and they're very thin, and it looks completely different.
Because they're cheap.
Because they're cheaper. My other question is, if we do go with the plan to not refurbish,
Replace.
replace, and they take out the historic lamps, could we possibly sell those to raise more funds to cities that maybe do want to make the effort in their own town? Could we resell like that historic aged lamp?
Who's
and
gonna
make
run
some
that?
money?
Yeah.
City's not gonna want to do that. They would sell them off as a bulk project probably.
But I mean, they're supposed to be
They're
valuable,
brand-
right? They're-
Somebody's gonna buy them and melt them down.
Or I would say resell, I mean, God forbid, but sell them for scrap or something to help fund this.
That's what I'm saying. Is there
Yeah.
a way we can take those and at least utilize that money to help maybe do more lamps?
I just don't want a contractor to run off with it. Scrap
Yeah,
it.
I just don't want it to disappear or end up in the city yard and,
Yeah. Normally,
or can we?
we
buy
can
a
write them
lamp?
in specification. We will, I mean, there's an inspector out there daily when all of this is happening. And if we haven't addressed it in the contract right now, we can either add an addendum, but I honestly, we talk about, giving them back to the city, and it would be at the yard for the temporary, and then we can determine what to do with them next.
Or
We
could-
wouldn't,
We could even sell them, like say, buy a lamp, buy part of Window history, because
And
there are people that don't live on those streets that might want to buy.
They could be disposed,
I'm just
we can
thinking, if
dispose
we're
of them.
gonna not refurbish them, let's get something out of them at least.
That's a
And
really
also-
good idea. I'd buy one.
I totally. Also, is there a place where we can put like maybe in that commons area on Glendora Avenue and like actually have a place where we put maybe 3 or 4 and say, these are our historic maps, so they don't completely disappear from, the face of Glendora.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Could we take like maybe 3 or 4, or do something with a handful and like leave it out there and let people see these are our historic lamps? If we get to the place where we're not refurbishing. I
Just
mean,
save
of
at
course,
least
That's a
a
good
few,
idea.
so they're not totally off.
Take 3 and like have the city put them on
something, like,
we're redoing it.
I'm just thinking maybe that.
We have our own.
Should do the thing like in front of Black Mountain.
There you go.
Well,
That would be
they
fun.
should be in front of the Glendora Historical Society.
So I don't know what department that would be, but I would imagine it'd be done through the city yard. If we could get like a plate of cement, have bolt 3 lights to it for like downtown, and put it downtown, and maybe put the QR card downtown, put it in the city park, where the old train used to go through.
Yeah.
Between the Goodman
That's what I
buildings.
was thinking. I mean, just something, if we end up having, of course, you won't refurbish.
Well,
them.
first we better, before we step to there, I think we should make sure that
We can't refurbish.
we can refurbish. You'd hate to ask to be refurbished and all of a sudden they're gonna see these new lights. I think we wait for the next meeting and we don't write that down and don't forget that,
Okay.
because that's a good one.
We're recreating the thing in front of Black Mountain with Pandora.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of when she was describing it.
Right
Although
down
a little off topic, but
Yeah.
we are working on some improvements to the Buzz Plaza area that are kind of more modern looking, a little bit more modern looking.
Oh,
So,
in that little plaza area.
yeah. Alongside some improvements on Mita Avenue as well.
I'm done.
So are there any other thoughts about the one pager that you want us to kind of?
No money.
Yeah,
Don't talk about money.
I'll write something on it and then scan it.
Yeah,
perfect, yeah.
yeah, I mean, feel free to print it and
Yes. I will do that.
and send it to us.
I think the more education, the better we're gonna do, because once I actually talked to people, they got it, and then it was just all positive.
I think we have to put them first and then.
So is there specific information that you think we need to add to this, that you found helpful as you were talking to them?
Just mainly that there are people are paying assessments. We have not been paying assessments.
Oh,
since it's been around. Those are the things that nobody really knew.
Okay.
So that kind of, I don't know how you word it. And, I don't think we necessarily need to know how much the other people are paying. 'cause
No.
it
I always
might be
stress that
different,
state-
we don't
the
wanna
state
create
years
that,
before.
but I think just the knowledge that everybody pays for the routes. We just haven't had to, and we haven't paid.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone would. Give a little bit of a chip off the shoulder. I think.
So again, just so I understand correctly, we have repair property taxes, and this is an assessment aside from that, so this will be a separate bill.
No, it'll be on
No,
the
it
same
would- it
bill,
gets
but you'll
added
see
to the
it
bill.
listed.
Oh,
It's
okay, so
itemized.
it'll be included in the property tax.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I think that was.
If you look at your property tax, there's all kinds of stuff on there. It just makes you sick. So just look at the
I was just
total.
gonna say, I
Take the
prefer
total
not to
number,
look.
pay it and shut up. Because all those other things, you ain't changing them. But you're gonna, they're in there.
And then just for some clarification, the frequently asked questions, if anybody has additional questions they want us to look at, please include those in your email. Or if there's questions that you want us to start working on for more of a mailer type thing, you can let us know that too.
I'll send you, I think, some to take off,
Okay.
because it was just our crazy.
I did have a question about the lights in the park,
Mhm.
because you had said we didn't have anyone mean that. Southern California Edison maintained all the other lamps except for the ones on our streets. Who maintains the lights in the park? Because you said we'd have to create maintenance?
City property.
No, that would be the city.
The city pays for that.
So
Yeah.
couldn't those people maintain the ones that you put up? I didn't understand how you were saying we had to create a maintenance program for the lights that we were.
We have
So,
to pay-
yeah,
Well,
it's a different,
it's not
yeah.
much to pay for.
So because it's within the park, we would consider it part of our maintenance and our typical maintenance obligation.
Okay,
And the city, this is a problem that happened before. The city now has people who knows how to take care of those and actually does, because that's how these lights got so bad. Because they apparently, that's actually what city staff told us in the first meeting, that there was nobody who knew how to maintain. That's why.
right, we were under the understanding that you just didn't have a program. So when I saw those lights, I was like, well, who's doing these?
Yeah, I don't know that we have a
I don't-
specific person assigned to that,
But
but
The reason the
how.
city shut the lights off is because the conduit is completely corroded.
Yeah.
And somebody would get electrocuted if they touched the light.
Didn't somebody
That's
get
why they shut them off. They can't control what's under the ground. It's just in a process of long-term, it should have been dug up 20 years ago.
One of the comments someone did say to me on the corner of Vista Bonita was that all these houses have old conduit. They were like, all these houses were built in, 1908.
Yeah.
So why are they concerned about the lights? Because anybody can walk by my house and get blown up too. That was one of the comments.
Well, that is
I mean, that's
private
something to
property
think about.
owner's responsibility,
Yeah.
and then, so that's, and anything on the public right of way is
Yeah, the city
different.
doesn't want to get sued.
Right,
If he wants to
so-
get sued, then that's the-
Yeah, that's good.
we limit our.
I just kind of looked at it like,
Limit
What
liability.
percentage of, not home residents, whatever personal owners have to vote yes for the
Oh, good question.
thing to pass?
Kyle's at a 50% plus one.
50 plus one.
And that's who attend the meeting, right? Who come to the public hearing. Is that correct or no?
No.
No? Oh, they don't? Okay, got it. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Some of the questions I'm sure I know the answer, but some people are concerned about, why isn't it the entire city? I mean, some people understand that in some cities, maybe they do it. This is only assessed within the historical district. Of property owners located within the historical district. I guess my question is, how do we explain that so people understand it properly? Because I mean, they've asked me, is why isn't the rest of the city? doing it?
Well, we
They're
have,
paying their own assessment, so.
Everybody
I mean,
has.
are there
it.
other type of assessments in other parts of the city? Nothing
There-
like the lighting district, right?
there is it's called Lighting District 1
Okay.
that is citywide, that Will then has helped us do all the assessments. And there they've gone through all the properties, are they this part of this special benefit? And that's how they're assessed. When they go through all these streets, if the street has no street lights, they're not part of the district. This group of homes are not part of the district because there is no street lights right now. But everyone else who has a street light, there's different ways it gets paid for. So when we do it, if there's a new development, there's, when they get permits from us and we require them to build a public road and then to include streetlights, the developer pays for all of that, and then how they distribute, who actually pays for it, the homeowners, and then that becomes part of that lighting district. So those homes are now paying in that district. Does that make sense?
So there are other
Yes.
lighting districts.
There's a
one
huge
other
one.
Like
It's-
the newest homes, let's say, for example, across from Sandburg, I mean, the newest ones, that they have their own assessed lighting.
Yes.
It's a gated community. The city doesn't maintain those lights, the developer.
But they may have put one
They're
on, I
HOA.
think there's some on Sierra Madre maybe, or I don't- what's across Street Bennett or something. I don't know which one you're talking about now, which development. But if there are streets, if there are streetlights that are adjacent to their parcel, there is a calculation that happens if they have a certain benefit of those lights, that they pay for that.
And basically, we're driving down Leodora, but we're not paying an assessment for that. So just,
Right.
it's the same thing. It's,
Right.
I mean, it's just the way the city chose to do it, right?
And I recognize what you're
That's
saying.
The way
Okay,
the
it's-
law
Yeah.
requires that it be done.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just the way
I
it's
mean, if all of Glendora wants to pay for it, it has to come out of the general fund. Is that correct? Yeah, but then it's not.
I am just trying to make clear the distinction, but some people may not understand. There are other lighting districts and other communities that are required to
Yes.
pay for their own.
Yes, every street light that you see, the ones that the city actually pays for, they call them safety lights. You know, you have the traffic signals and you have lights over the top at the intersections. We pay for those.
Yeah,
Is
we have
any-
landscape districts as well, so there's not, there's one large, like you're saying, one large lighting district that's already at citywide. Then those of you here and the others in the antique streetlight don't pay for that right now, because you don't have those streetlights at your residence. But we also have landscape districts as well, so like Bougainvillea, all those plants out there, all the people that have properties there pay a special assessment for the city to maintain.
The trees that are in the lights for the bougainvilleas,
Yeah,
not inside the bougainvillea.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it, yeah.
So the way I understood it was if there's a light on your street, you could be pretty sure that you're paying an assessment for it.
Yeah.
So is that like the simplest way to put it to people?
Yeah, it's on the tax bill.
So
Yes.
if you see lights on a street, the people who live on that street are paying an assessment for it.
Mhm.
And again, I'm driving down one hill, but I'm not paying for it. So that's why we would pay for it when it comes in front of our eyes.
That's correct.
That's the simplest way. Yes.
And I think it's helpful to think of it the other way around, like, if you lived on Amelia, would you want to have to pay the extra proper or extra assessment because we're getting strict lights on, you know,
Yeah,
Wabash?
that's a very good point.
I think that will make people. Sorry, we're quiet
Just
now.
remember, nobody wants to pay nothing, they don't have to. The city should do it. So they all pay.
Richard, there's more detailed information on the FAQ sheet on the lighting assessment district.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely report on our website too, if you want to see the streetlight district on how they, you know, it's it's an engineering report that talks about how they distribute the costs amongst the different parcels.
Do you think we'd be able to get those signs out at the park by Halloween? Is that crazy? Because there's gonna be a lot of people that used to walk up and down Wabash on Halloween that don't do that anymore because there's no lights. It used to be like as soon as the park would end for the night, people would go up the street. That would be a good place to put information about streetlights because a lot of people who go there live near there. I mean, I don't know if it's possible to get any information out or just signs or something to get people talking.
You know where I live on Glenmore Avenue? We get, well, I'm not sure how it's gonna be this year because of COVID, but in past years, buses would actually come in and it was like a freeway on both sides of the street. So the children that came trick or treating weren't from Glendora. They were from other cities. They bring them in because they figured this was safe neighborhoods for them. So I was thinking the same thing, people, but then they're not even Glendorians that
With the park stuff, I think it's more local.
are.
They go where the good candy is.
Well, they
And
came
where
to
it's safe.
Glendora because the guy
And I
with
would
the pirate
That's
ship
why they
was
come to
his
Glendora.
kids. That's why.
I got it.
Yeah, I remember when
We
Morgan
used to
Ranch
get
was
bombarded.
Yeah, yeah.
there. They give dollar candy bars on Morgan Ranch.
Even though that stuff would be there.
Okay, so I just had one, I know that we're at the point where to ask if there are any other closing comments. Any other closing comments on this side?
No.
We're good.
Okay, is there anything, I know last time what we wanted to do was kind of get a feel from the public as how much they were willing to pay. That was just kind of a preliminary visit. Now we're asking for, I guess, information so that we can give to people, have posted, possibly be on the booth and updating the frequently asked questions, etc. Is there anything that we are doing as a panel, you know, in this next time round, for the next meeting? What kind of discussions do we want to be having at this point?
I think that we would know a lot more once that bid comes back of what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think gives us our full direction of which way we're gonna go. Going after funding is gonna be the end of our deal, but to go after public support or any of that is most important from the bid. Because the bid will tell us where we're at.
We'll have an idea, or that's when it will close.
We'll have the the cost, but then we also need then Wildan to just do their calculations on what that would mean by the assessment.
So we should have that, we'll have that information for you at the next
At the
meeting.
next
That's going to be presented at the next meeting.
But
Yes.
Will Dan is gonna be calculating the difference, the entire amount that we're short. There's the entire
Yeah.
shortfall.
Right,
yes,
Is
right.
gonna be calculated into the assessment.
And as we.
Or are they gonna calculate options?
Well, when we get the bids back, we will look at the different options too, because we recognize the idea of refurbishing versus replacement, so.
Or
you know,
even
at
the
minimum, they
payment
would-
options that were mentioned tonight.
I have a question on the 1.5 million grant. How long ago was that grant? How long ago was the 1.5 million grant requested? Was it 2020, 2021? Grants, are there any
When did it
additional?
come to us?
Yeah, are there any, has the city solicited any additional
It's
grants?
in the questions, but no.
So it was not, so it's not a grant in the traditional sense. It was a grant. We didn't apply for it. It's actually a direct budget allocation from the state budget. Yeah. So they approved the state budget earlier this year, or last year, excuse me. It included a line item that said 1.5 million to Glendora for this
Okay, so it
particular
wasn't a
project.
traditional grant.
No.
Didn't somebody say in our first meeting that who it was that?
Senator.
Yes.
Senator-
Senator
Portantino.
Yeah,
Senator Portantino.
that was my next follow-up question. Has the city requested since then any grant funds? Additional grant funds?
For this project? no.
Yes.
City's asking for money all the time.
That would
Yeah.
State.
Well,
so
because
they're
of
doing everything they
inflation
can.
and he's already given us that money, couldn't we go back to him and say, hey, we were way off and with inflation, we need more money? I mean, is that something we could do?
We could always ask for more money. It's just, he has to balance his asks. Every city in his district is asking for some money for a different project, so he has to pick and choose when he can do what.
Have you done that? Have you asked him, or has anyone reached out?
For additional funding for this project? No,
Why-
not to my knowledge.
Why wouldn't you reach out and say this is the?
We've asked for money for other projects.
Okay.
Maybe once we know what our new speakers are.
Any other?
What was the new fund that the government just, the federal government just allocated all these street bridges and, what is that called again? I can't remember.
There's a national infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Isn't that considered infrastructure?
One of the,
Lighting?
I'll just, an immediate, so a lot of the infrastructure that are always related to, like say bridges or safety and things like that. The debate of whether these are safety lights or
Yeah, we would be
decorative,
low fruit on them.
Yeah.
It'd be a waste of our time.
We'd have to find a program, hope it qualifies, try to justify it, and
Yeah.
then
And
Yeah.
see in 4 years.
basically,
How many we want to.
it takes a little bit of time.
Or we hire, and then we'd ask for it.
Go ahead and adjourn the meeting. 7:13.
Is our next one December? No.
November 10th.
November.
And that's when we'll have our.